Chosen one, this message finds you at a moment when confusion may have turned into quiet clarity. You've felt shifts you couldn't explain, people drifting without conflict, especially those marked by the letter J. This isn't coincidence, and it isn't punishment. It is God's hand at work behind the scenes, arranging what your eyes could not see before. When God prepares you for elevation, He also removes what can no longer follow you. What feels like loss is actually protection. What feels like distance is divine alignment. Stay present, because the unseen force guiding these changes is working entirely for your good. God often works in ways that do not announce themselves. There is no thunder, no dramatic warning, no final conversation that explains everything. Instead, there is a quiet shift. Messages slow down, energy changes, conversations feel forced or empty. The people who once had constant access to you begin to drift naturally, sometimes without conflict or closure. This silence is not accidental. It is divine strategy. God understands that if He explained every removal in advance, you might resist it. You might try to fix what He is ending. So He moves gently, allowing distance to grow until separation feels inevitable rather than painful. Every person who enters your life does so for a reason, a season, or a lesson. The people were never meant to stay forever. They were permitted to walk with you, only as long as their presence contributed to your growth. Once that assignment was fulfilled, God began to withdraw them quietly. Not because they are evil, and not because you failed, but because continuation would have caused stagnation. God never removes without purpose. When someone's influence starts limiting your clarity, draining your spirit, or subtly pulling you away from your calling, heaven intervenes. You may notice that these separations feel different from past endings. There is less drama and more stillness. That is because God is protecting you from emotional chaos. Loud endings create wounds, guilt, and unanswered questions that linger. Silent endings create reflection and peace. God knows your sensitivity. He knows your heart would overanalyze explanations and replay conversations. So He allows the connection to fade instead of break. This is mercy, not neglect. Another truth is that some people cannot handle the version of you that is emerging. As you mature spiritually, your boundaries strengthen, your discernment sharpens, and your tolerance for confusion diminishes. The people were comfortable with the old you, the version that overgave, over-explained, and overextended. The moment you started choosing peace over attachment, alignment over approval, the relationship naturally weakened. God didn't force them away. He simply allowed growth to do what it always does: separate what can no longer match the frequency. It is also important to understand that God removes people before they become obstacles. What you cannot see is what God already knows. He sees future conflicts, hidden intentions, unspoken jealousy, and emotional dependencies that would have harmed you later. By removing the people now, God is preventing a deeper wound later. What feels confusing today would have been devastating tomorrow. This is why you may feel both relief and sadness at the same time. Your spirit recognizes the protection even while your heart mourns the familiarity. Silence from others is often God's answer to your prayers. You may have asked for peace, clarity, growth, or elevation without realizing what those prayers would require. Peace demands distance from chaos. Growth requires release. Elevation cannot happen while carrying excess weight. The fading of these connections is evidence that your prayer life is working, even if the process feels uncomfortable. Do not chase explanations. Do not force reconnections that God is gently dissolving. When God removes someone quietly, it is an invitation for you to trust Him deeply. Closure does not always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from understanding that God closed the door Himself. Your responsibility is not to reopen it, but to walk forward without guilt. In time, you will look back and realize how necessary this removal was. You will see how clarity returned once the noise left. You will feel stronger, lighter, and more aligned with your purpose. The silence that once confused you will become the peace you now protect. God's quiet work is still work, and when certain people fade from your life without explanation, it is not abandonment, it is divine completion. You are not being pushed backward, you are being preserved. What feels like separation is actually protection unfolding in real time. When God redirects people away from your life, especially those connected to old patterns, He is shielding you from distractions you no longer have the capacity to carry. Preservation is subtle. It doesn't always feel like rescue. Sometimes it feels like loneliness, misunderstanding, or sudden emotional space. But that space is intentional. God creates distance so your spirit can breathe again, so your mind can hear clearly, and so your heart can reset without interference. There was a time when you tolerated confusion because you thought endurance was loyalty. You stayed connected even when your peace was compromised. But God has watched your growth. He has seen how much you've learned, how much you've endured, and how much discernment you've gained. The version of you emerging now requires protection, not constant explanation. That is why certain people can no longer walk beside you. Their presence would demand access that God has already restricted. Redirection is one of God's most loving actions. When He sees you heading toward emotional exhaustion, spiritual delay, or relational imbalance, He adjusts your path. He doesn't always do it dramatically. Often, He simply changes the flow. Conversations no longer align. Timing no longer matches. Effort becomes one-sided. This is not punishment, it is course correction. God is moving you towards something that requires your full focus, and divided energy would weaken the outcome. You may struggle with guilt, wondering if you should have tried harder or communicated more. But preservation does not require justification. God is not asking you to defend your growth. He is asking you to trust His direction. Some people are removed not because they did something wrong, but because staying would require you to shrink. And God will never bless what diminishes you. Notice how peace slowly returns when certain connections loosen. Your thoughts become clearer. Your intuition grows stronger. You begin to feel more aligned with yourself and with God. That is confirmation. Preservation feels quiet but powerful. It is the absence of constant emotional turbulence. It is the freedom to move without explaining every step. It is the safety of knowing that not everyone needs access to your journey. God also understands timing better than you ever could. If certain people remained in your life during this season, they might delay what is meant to arrive. They might unintentionally influence your decisions, dilute your confidence, or cloud your discernment. So God steps in early. He removes before damage occurs. What you see as sudden distance is actually long-term protection. You are being redirected toward clarity, stability, and purpose. The path ahead requires strength, not emotional entanglement. God is preparing you for responsibility, influence, and inner peace. That preparation includes trimming what no longer fits. Preservation means God values what He has placed inside you. He guards it fiercely, even when you don't understand His methods. Let go without resentment. Bless what has ended without reopening it. Preservation works best when you don't fight it. The more you trust the redirection, the faster peace settles in. You are not losing anything meant for you. What is truly aligned will never require you to beg, chase, or compromise your growth. God's hand is steady. His vision is complete, and as He redirects you, remember this truth. Anything He removes was never meant to define your future. You are being preserved for something greater, something clearer, something that requires the healed and strengthened version of you. There comes a moment when you realize that not everything can come with you into the next season. Growth has a way of revealing what no longer fits. As God elevates you, He becomes intentional about what remains in your life. What leaves now is not being taken from you out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The path ahead requires clarity, strength, and alignment. Anything that cannot sustain that level must be released. This is why certain people cannot continue the journey with you. It is not about their worth, it is about direction. You may feel the urge to hold on out of loyalty, memory, or fear of change. But God sees beyond the present moment. He knows where you are being led, and He knows who cannot survive the terrain ahead. Some people are only equipped for familiar territory. They thrive in comfort zones, repetition, and emotional dependence. The place God is taking you demands independence, discernment, and spiritual maturity. Carrying those who resist growth would slow you down and weigh you down. God loves you too much to allow that. When alignment breaks, attachment becomes dangerous. You may notice that interactions start to feel draining instead of energizing. Conversations revolve around the past rather than the future. Support turns conditional. Understanding turns into resistance. These are not random changes. They are signals. God is showing you that the connection has reached its limit. Staying connected would require you to lower your standards, ignore your intuition, or silence your calling. And that is a cost God will not ask you to pay. The hardest part of release is accepting that love does not always mean longevity. You can care deeply for someone and still recognize that they cannot walk with you any further. God teaches you this not to harden your heart, but to mature it. Emotional growth includes learning when to let go without bitterness and without needing validation. The absence of certain people is not proof of failure, it is proof of transformation. Elevation demands space. New levels require room for new responsibilities, new insights, and new connections. God cannot pour into a life that is already overcrowded with outdated attachments. So he clears space. He removes what once felt essential, so that what is truly necessary can arrive. This clearing may feel uncomfortable, but it is purposeful. Empty space is not abandonment, it is preparation. You may be tempted to question whether you are being selfish by choosing growth over familiarity. But choosing alignment is not selfish, it is obedient. God never calls you to abandon compassion, but he does call you to abandon confusion. If a relationship constantly pulls you backward, keeps you emotionally tied to old versions of yourself, or distracts you from your spiritual focus, it cannot continue. God's plans require your full presence, not divided loyalty. There is also a deeper truth. Some people are intimidated by who you are becoming. As your confidence strengthens and your discernment sharpens, those who benefited from your uncertainty may feel uncomfortable. Rather than grow with you, they drift away. God allows this because forcing alignment would create conflict. Peaceful separation is often the most merciful outcome. Trust that what cannot go with you was never meant to arrive with you. What is aligned will meet you at the next level without resistance. It will feel natural, supportive, and balanced. You will not have to explain your growth or defend your boundaries. The right connections will recognize your value without needing reminders. Let the release happen without fear. You are not walking alone, you are walking lighter. God is guiding each step, ensuring that nothing and no one stands in the way of what He has prepared for you. What leaves now makes room for what lasts. And what lasts will honor the person you have become, not the version you had to outgrow. There will be moments when you want to resist what is happening, when your mind searches for logic and your heart looks for reassurance. Resistance often comes from not seeing the full picture. You are reacting to what is visible, while God is responding to what is hidden. He sees beneath words, beyond smiles, and past intentions that were never spoken. What feels confusing to you is already clear to Him. That is why trust becomes essential in this season. Trust is not passive, it is active surrender to a wisdom greater than your own. You may not have evidence that something was wrong, yet you feel an inner unease you cannot explain. That unease is discernment. God speaks through stillness, intuition, and subtle discomfort long before danger becomes obvious. The reason He removes certain people without dramatic events is because exposure is not always necessary. God does not need to reveal everything to protect you. Some truths would hurt more than help. Some knowledge would burden you rather than free you. So He chooses peace over explanation. Hidden intentions do not always look malicious. Sometimes they appear as dependency, control masked as concern, or closeness that limits your independence. God recognizes when someone's presence begins to shape your decisions more than His voice does. That is when intervention happens. The removal is not about blame, it is about balance. God restores alignment by quietly loosening bonds that have grown too tight. You may replay conversations in your mind, searching for what you missed. But discernment is not about proof. It is about perception. God often removes clarity from situations so you can rely on faith instead of facts. This builds spiritual maturity. When you trust God without needing every answer, you step into deeper intimacy with Him. Resistance fades when you accept that you don't need to understand everything to move forward safely. Unseen limits are another reason God steps in. Some people support you only up to a certain point. They celebrate your beginnings, but feel threatened by your progress. They are comfortable when you are questioning yourself, but uneasy when you walk confidently. God sees these limits before they surface. He removes people before their discomfort turns into discouragement. What you experience as distance is actually divine foresight. Spiritual misalignment is subtle but powerful. It doesn't always show up as conflict. Sometimes it shows up as constant misunderstanding, miscommunication, or emotional heaviness after interactions. God notices how your spirit reacts, even when your mind tries to rationalize. When alignment is lost, peace becomes difficult to maintain. God values your peace more than your explanations. That is why He intervenes, even when you feel unsure. Letting go of resistance allows healing to begin. When you stop fighting the separation, clarity slowly replaces confusion. You start noticing how much energy you were using to maintain connections that no longer fed you. You feel lighter, calmer, and more centered. This is not coincidence. It is confirmation that God knew exactly what He was doing. Trust does not mean denying your feelings. It means not letting them override divine guidance. You can feel sadness without reopening doors. You can miss someone without returning to misalignment. God honors emotional honesty, but He also honors obedience. When you choose trust over resistance, you choose growth over comfort. In time, you will thank God for what He didn't explain. You will see how protection often comes disguised as confusion. The unseen work becomes visible only in hindsight. What you thought was loss reveals itself as safety. What you thought was rejection reveals itself as redirection. God is not withholding clarity to frustrate you. He is preserving your peace. Some things are hidden because knowing them would pull you backward emotionally. Trust allows you to move forward unburdened. Release the need to understand every detail. The one guiding you sees every angle, every outcome, and every intention. And He is leading you away from what could harm you and toward what will strengthen you. Standing firm does not mean standing still. It means remaining rooted in faith while continuing to move forward, even when the path feels unfamiliar. When God begins clearing people from your life, especially those you once felt deeply connected to, it is easy to question yourself. But this season is not about second guessing. It is about trusting momentum. God does not remove without replacing. What He clears is not emptiness. It is space, intentionally created for growth, strength, and fulfillment that match who you are becoming. Moving forward requires courage. It means resisting the urge to look back for validation or comfort. The past may feel safe because it is familiar, But familiarity is not the same as alignment. God is inviting you to step into a future that demands confidence, clarity, and spiritual maturity. You cannot walk into that future while constantly turning around to see who noticed your absence. Forward motion is an act of faith. Each step you take affirms that you trust God more than you trust old attachments. As space opens, growth begins quietly. You start discovering parts of yourself that were muted to keep peace with others. Your thoughts sharpen. Your prayers deepen. Your goals feel more attainable because your energy is no longer divided. God uses solitude not as punishment, but as refinement. In stillness, you learn to hear His voice without interference. In separation, you learn who you are without influence. This growth is foundational. It prepares you to handle what is coming without fear or confusion. Strength follows growth. Emotional strength comes from learning that you can survive endings without losing yourself. Spiritual strength comes from trusting God, even when outcomes are uncertain. Each time you choose not to reopen a door God has closed, your confidence increases. You begin to realize that your peace is not fragile, it is protected. Strength does not shout. It shows up as calm decisions, firm boundaries, and the ability to move on without bitterness. Divine fulfillment does not rush in, it unfolds. God fills the cleared space with purpose, not noise. New opportunities, aligned connections, and deeper understanding arrive gradually. They feel different from what you lost. There is less confusion, less emotional strain, and more mutual respect. Fulfillment brings balance. It supports your growth, instead of competing with it. This is how you know the space was cleared intentionally. You may still feel moments of loneliness, but loneliness does not mean you are alone. God walks closely with those He separates for purpose. In these moments, He strengthens your reliance on Him rather than on people. This dependence is not weakness, it is intimacy. When God becomes your primary source of reassurance, no absence can destabilize you. Standing firm also means refusing to entertain regret. You did not lose what was meant to last. What ended did so because it could not evolve with you. Regret keeps you emotionally tied to what God has already released. Gratitude sets you free. Thank God for what was learned, what was revealed, and what was healed. Then allow yourself to receive what is next without comparison. As you continue forward, you will notice that peace becomes your compass. Decisions feel clearer. Distractions lose their grip. Your life begins to reflect the alignment happening internally. This is the fruit of obedience. When God clears space, it is always for expansion. When He guides people away, it is always to guide you closer to your calling. Stand firm. Keep moving. The space around you is not empty. It is sacred. God is filling it with strength you didn't know you had, growth you didn't know you needed, and fulfillment that will not require you to abandon yourself. What He is building now will last because it was formed in clarity, protected by wisdom, and guided by His hand.